Welcome, one and all, to the K.O.E Nation for a very special impromptu review of TX Bourbon, Texas Straight Bourbon Whiskey, Sherry Cask finished. I am your King of Extreme, the man of the hour, the man with the power, the man that makes you the podcast cower. You can, of course, find me at K.O.E Nation on YouTube, TikTok, and Twitch. And tonight, we're getting into an excellent 101.6 proof, 50.8% alcohol by volume, bottled September 2020. Sherry cask aged Texas bourbon in that hot Texas sun. But yes, folks, this is an excellent, excellent bourbon. The TX distillery, Tony and I kind of have an affinity for, because when we went down to Houston for the Royal Rumble, we picked up a bottle of TX whiskey and a bottle of TX bourbon. The whiskey we drank in the hotel, the bourbon we brought back. I still have that bottle. The whiskey we really, really enjoyed. The bourbon I always thought was a little grainy, but had a lot of potential. And then these finishing series came out, and it pretty much fixed the problems. And so, the Texas Straight Bourbon Whiskey finished in PX from Firestone and Robertson Distilling. Now, folks, to read the back, this calls for the glasses of extreme. Yes, folks. So, proof of our roots. We tirelessly committed to capturing the terroir of Texas, from locally farmed corn and wheat to our wild Texas yeast and maturation in new charred oak barrels. This Texas Straight Bourbon Whiskey, finished in PX sherry casks, brings forth tastes of, and I'm not going to say those yet, I'm just going to cover those up, farmed, distilled, and bottled in Texas. So this is a very interesting, so I suppose technically, they don't put it on the bottle, and so I'm sure there's some regulation, but technically this looks like it's pretty much a grain to glass operation for this particular product. I know that for their TX blended whiskey, excellent stuff, one of the best you'll ever have, honestly, and I say that with no hyperbole. That bottle of blended whiskey will be some of the best you've had. Just excellent, excellent stuff. It's a blend of bourbon and malt whiskey, so that one's a little interesting. But this one, complete Texas product. Hey, will you look at that? And also what's neat is the top here is actual boot leather from a boot maker in Texas, and the little symbol there above the Firestone and Robertson Distilling, and it's in the glass, as you can see, and it's there on the top neck of the bottle, is apparently the stitch mark that the boot makers put into their boot. The toe of their boot is kind of like a trademark. And so that's just neat to me. So this is just like Texas in every way you can imagine. But what really matters here, folks, is how it hits the nose and the palate. So first, let's let some air get in there. Now, let it hit the nose. Very dark chocolate, grain, and an orchard fruit. This is a good one. For 101, you can actually stay in and really observe the nose. Like, there's some whiskeys where the nose is really hot. You can stay in for just a second or two, but this one really lets you kind of luxuriate in it. Marvelous. Marvelous. Definitely picking up raisins. Definitely a lot of raisins. Because, well, sherry finished. And PX sherry. I mean, like the Whistler, Irish whiskey finished in PX sherry casks. Excellent, excellent stuff. I mean, there's so many excellent whiskeys that Pedro Jimenez sherry just takes to the next level. This one I recall being very, very impressed with when me and Tony tried it a few years ago. But it's been some time since I've been into this bottle because I've been getting deep into my whiskey journey. But I saw this and thought it needs its just due and its own solo review. So, Slanjava. Hmm, interesting. Okay, on the palate, it's initially butter, toffee, and grain. And then when you open your mouth and let oxygen hit your mouth, spice overwhelms the palate. Hmm, interesting. I'm going to go back in for another one. Okay, that second taste, the molasses gives way to a cocoa powdered chocolate and some oak influence. A little bit of oak is in there. Not heavy, not offensive, but it's there. Um, interesting. One more. Why not? Yep. Chocolatey cocoa powder, almost not heavy, but slightest hint of coffee. So, for those who do not know, we grade every whiskey on a 5-star scale. 5 meaning you have to have it before you shuffle off this mortal coil. 0 meaning pass it on by. The K.O.E Nation has advised you well. So we're going to grade this as a bourbon, as a whiskey, as a cask-aged spirit. It's shelving, and for those new to the show, the secret 5th question. Now, I know technically it's a finished bourbon, but we're going to grade it as a bourbon. There's enough great finished bourbons out there to the point where I think it's fair enough to give it that rating of just straight up bourbon. All right, so on a 5-star scale as a bourbon, Tony and I actually did rate this on a 5-star scale as just a bourbon years ago when we did review this for the first time. Now, Tony gave it a 3.5 as a bourbon, and the sherry finishing did kind of throw him off for does he give this official points. Me, I loved it, and I gave it a 3.75 because I think it's just... It's excellent bourbon, but I could understand how a Spanish sherry casking as a bourbon purist could see that as not quite worthy of a 5-star. So I totally get it. As a whiskey, I'm also going to give it a 3.75 because while very good, it's limited in its cocktailing, to be honest with you. I think like this one, you could do an old fashioned, a bourbon Presbyterian, even cola. I don't know if I like maybe like a cherry cola or something like that to complement the sweet, but even then I don't know. So I'm gonna go 3.75 as a whiskey. Now, as a cask-aged spirit, putting it up against all the cognacs, armagnacs, reposado and añejo tequilas, Canadian whiskeys, Scotch whiskeys, Japanese whiskeys, rum, anything that's not white rum, basically. Anything aged in a cask. I'm going to go 3.9. 3.9 stars. Almost 4 stars. Because this is an achievement. And because I know what the bourbon is. It's very grain heavy. And it's very pronounced flavors. And this, like, takes that, but rounds out all of its edges perfectly. So this is sort of an achievement in cask aging. So for that, I have to give it appreciation. So yes, 3.9 stars. Now, in terms of shelving, this is a middle to bottom shelf, depending on which one has more room. Like right now, my bottom shelf is getting kind of low on room, like not many bottles there. So this might go there just due to, but if my middle shelf gets a little light, this will definitely be moving up there. So this is a middle to bottom shelf. It's not quite a top shelf, but I'd be hesitant to say it's a definitive bottom because it's not. It just depends on your taste. If you got a whiskey sweet tooth, this one might be worth checking out. The secret 5th question is, when this bottle runs empty, will I seek another? Well, it cost me $60 USD back in 2020-ish. So I would definitely seek another one out if I could find it. I've also heard that there's some expansions to their finishing series. So before I go diving into another bottle of this, I might look a little deeper into TX Bourbon's different finishings that I've been hearing about, just because, well, I've been a big fan of this distillery ever since 2020, when me and Tony went down to Houston, Texas for the Royal Rumble. And that was, yeah, I mean, when we tried that TX whiskey, we were like, is it really this good? Or are we just so happy that we're at the Royal Rumble? And I really thought it was that. I thought it was more in our head that we were just so happy it was the Royal Rumble. But in reality, no, the TX whiskey was that good. And that was amazing. And so, folks, as I'm known to say around here, all that being said, thank you for joining me for this impromptu review of TX Sherry Cask Finished Bourbon. I am your King of Extreme Phil, K.O.E, the man of the hour, the man with the power, the man that makes you the podcast hour. You can, of course, find me at K.O.E Nation on YouTube, TikTok, and Twitch. And I hope you all find your way back here happy, healthy, much the wiser. Catch you around, y'all.
Get back. Tell you what I'll do if I ever get back. I promise to refabricate you, raging rivers of gold. That's what the brochure advertised. And now we're lost, we gotta take it down. Let you get slow, it's hard to survive.
Nice.
El Dorado. Oh, Lord. Well, let's see how that one went.
Yeah.